Hello and welcome in God's good grace. Thank you for stopping by. If you have been following my progress related to my recently released book titled The Magnificence of the Three with videos on YouTube, then add this video to your collection as it discusses a subject that was not included in the book as it came to me later after the final edits, but an important one to maintain the integrity, honor, and the truth about God of the Hebrews, Christians, and Muslims. The magnificence of the three is a reference to the atom's three magnificent particles. This video is to reveal a secret God preserved in the record that nobody noticed before. This secret was that God designed Israel after the magnificence of the three as well. This means that Israel was also designed in the image of the atom, and this image was that of a God who knew both good and evil. I'm claiming in my book that the fundamental structure of the universe, including life on Earth, evolves around the opposite attract design of the atom. The atom is made of three particles. Two of them are opposite of each other. One is known as the electron, and it has a negative electrical charge. That's the blue ball running around in circles of the image. The other is a proton particle, and it has a positive electrical charge. That is represented by the yellow ball in image. It is therefore the opposite of the negative electron. The third particle that makes it a relationship of the three is the neutron, which has no electrical charge. This is represented by the orange ball. I am claiming that this particle, according to biblical record, is the God particle that our scientists are searching for today. This is why it is attached to the positive proton, as if to keep it away from the negative electron. The magnificence of the three relationship was recorded parabolically in various places in the biblical stories. The most obvious story was preserved during the conversation between the snake and Eve when she chose to go for knowledge in Genesis 3, verses 2 to 5. The snake told Eve that if she chose knowledge, then she would end up like God, who would know both good and evil. This was a straightforward depiction of the three particles of the atom, where the story recorded God as the representative of the neutron particle, while the good represented the positive particle, whereas evil represented the negative particle. This was the depiction of the structure of the atom and its three particles: the neutral neutron, which represented God, the positive proton, which represented good spiritually, and the negative electron, which represented evil spiritually as well. This is the basic fundamental structure of life in the heavens and on earth, and God preserved it in the design of the atom. What I am discussing in this video was not included in my book, as I didn't see it until after the final edits. The 76 years of genocide and murder spree of Palestinians and their babies by the Zionist state of Israel and white gospel Christians of America and Europe compelled me to reveal the meaning of the dual nature of Israel now, without waiting for the second book of the series. In that case, if you accept the scriptures as we found them, then you should be fully aware that the image of God was that of a God who knew both good and evil. When God designed the atom, he used the same blueprint in its design. The atom, as I claim, was God's firstborn. As Israel was God's representative on earth, God also designed Israel as the magnificence of the three as well. Therefore, Israel was designed as a tribe of opposite attract also. This means that Israel was designed as both good and evil, to put it bluntly. God left clues in parabolic stories for us to discover. God first preserved this with the incident under Mountain Sinai, as recorded in Genesis 32. While Moses was receiving the 10 Commandments on the mountaintop, a group of his chosen tribe was creating an idol, a calf made of gold, to worship at the bottom of the mountain. You know the rest of the story. Moses came down the mountain and confronted these evil people. He called for whoever was on God's side to come to him, and all the sons of Levi did. Moses commanded them to kill the idol worshippers, and they slaughtered 3,000 of them, without counting those killed by the plague God set loose on them. God let the world know then that as his chosen tribe were his representatives on earth. They were designed in his image and likenesses, that of positive and negative scientifically, or good and evil biblically. The Levites that day represented the good and positive side of Israel, whereas the idol worshippers represented the evil and negative side. This meant that the relationship between God, the neutron, and two opposite groups of Israel was a magnificence of the three relationships. These two versions of Israel were recorded throughout the Old Testament. There was always a group of Israelites who could not get away from worshiping idols, and these generations were well recorded in the scriptures. God, as the Creator, was fully aware of this dark side of Israel and warned them of what they would encounter in their future as a result of their stiff-necked behavior of idol worshiping. This warning was recorded in Leviticus 26 before Israel even entered the Promised Land. God promised Israel there that they were going to lose the Promised Land, and that they would be enslaved by their enemies if they continued worshiping idols and violating the commandments. Israel did not heed the warning throughout their days living on the land as recorded. Eventually, the opposite attract sides of Israel manifested again for the second time after King Solomon died. They divided themselves into two groups. One group consisted of 10 tribes that came to be known as the 10 tribes of northern Israel, whereas the other group consisted of 2 tribes of Judah in southern Israel. They eventually got into a civil war, as recorded in 2 Kings chapter 14. This marked the beginning of the retributions that God promised Israel in Leviticus. Just as recorded, the northern tribes of Israel were eventually taken as slaves by the Assyrians, as recorded in 2 Kings chapter 17. Then the southern tribes of Judah were later taken as slaves by the Babylonians, and these pagans destroyed God's temple and Jerusalem and broke down its walls, 2 Kings chapter 25. This was the end of the kingdom of Israel, just as God warned them in Leviticus, and as if by coincidence it happened immediately after the Israelites again divided themselves into 2 groups. Their idol-worshipping culture could not be forgiven. This was the end of the kingdom of Israel, just as God promised them in Leviticus 26. The Israelites were then scattered into the lands of their enemies, as God promised, for over 2,000 years. During this period, God did not help them during their hardship by restoring their kingdom or returning them to the land. The reason, as I discuss in book, was that by kicking them off the land and dispersed across the globe, Israel ended up fulfilling their only purpose as assigned by God. This purpose was to be priests to the world. This was how they survived for over 2,000 years, scattered in the lands of their enemies. Then came World War II of 1939, which ended in 1945 in Europe. During this violent conflict, like all other conflicts amongst Christian countries, the Germans murdered over 6 million Jews. It was after this conflict that Christians of Europe and America thought that the best way to get rid of Jews from their lands was to return them to the land God kicked Israel out of in the Old Testament. This land was already called Palestine, and the Muslims, Jews, and Christians lived there peacefully for 2,000 years amongst one another. It just happened that an organization called Zionism was already formed by a pagan Jew named Theodor Herz in Europe before this war. His goal was to find a piece of land to get away from European Christians so that Jews could live in peace. The European and American Christians decided to send their Jews to the land then known as Palestine, the same land that God kicked Israel out of in the Old Testament for idol worshipping. A new nation was then created in 1948 on this piece of land, and Jews from all over the world began migrating there to build their new country, which came to be known as the Zionist State of Israel. What the average person doesn't know, especially Christians even today, is that there is also another group of Jews that have nothing to do with the Zionist State of Israel. This group is generally known as the Diaspora Jews. Unlike the Christians of the West, the diasporas refer to the state of Israel as evil. The Zionists have derogatory names for the diaspora Jews also. They refuse to set foot in Israel. Their opposition to the Zionists is important today, biblically. Without planning or understanding, they turned themselves into evidence to support God's message in the Old Testament. This message was that Israel was designed as a magnificence of the three, where God is the neutron, while Israel would always be in 2 groups opposite of each other. The diaspora Jews are the opposite of the Zionist Jews, and with their opposition, complete the image and likeness of Israel that God first showed us with the events under Mount Sinai. This image manifested again in the modern world, as Israel was designated as God's representative for mankind. Then it must be understood today that they will always be divided into 2 groups, as this was the image and likeness of God, a God who knew both good and evil. The diaspora Jews believed that the Christians of the West and Zionists interfered with God's plan and created a state without waiting for the Messiah. The evidence of their truth is obvious today, as ever since the Zionist state was created, the land never rested. If you check Leviticus 26 again, you will find that this was one reason God specifically cited why he would kick his chosen tribe off the land. The latest supplement of this 70-some-year-old violence over the land included the intentional bombing by the Zionists with approval by white Christians of the West of hospitals and refugee camps, killing adults, children, and babies. When confronted about the killing of these children over the land, some white Christians respond that God killed children too in the Old Testament, so it's all right. This interpretation of the scriptures alone by white Christians sides them with Zionists as opposites to the Diaspora Jews. Both groups of Israel, however, call the Christians idol worshippers. They may be right, considering the millions of Muslims and Palestinian babies the Christians murdered in the last 20 years to protect the Zionist state of Israel in contradiction to the commandments and Jesus' messages. They preach loving thy neighbor as the second most important commandment, and that God is merciful and loving, but have no problem financing the bombardment and killing of Palestinian babies and children. And they wonder why churches are empty and thousands closed every year. Anyways, this is it for this first video. Remember that as Israel was God's representative on earth, the tribe had to be designed as the magnificence of the three. This was the same design God used to design Adam with, as well as the atom. This design was revealed by the snake as the image and likenesses of God. This image and likeness was that of a God who knew both good and evil. Thank you for watching. But stay tuned, however, for the next video of the series, as I plan on confronting the white Christians of the West for the evil they have done to the church and the future of God's magnificent creation. The Magnificence of the Three is available online on Amazon, iTunes, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart. Get a copy and discover what the Tree of Knowledge, Tree of Life, Garden of Eden, and the Ark of the Covenant are. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, as I plan on uploading more videos discussing subjects and claims about the scientific nature of the Bible as discussed in the book. Thank you again for watching. Please share and take care of yourself. Till next time, stay blessed.